and let's get started. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a headband, a thick headband. You could probably use a thin one, but then the method would probably change, and I don't want to feel like dealing with that right now. So I will say a thick headband for this tutorial. I got this at Dollar Tree. It was the only one left, so I don't know how often they have it or when they sell it, but it was perfect. It had pink and blue polka dots, as you can see from the inside here, but I grabbed some fabric paint and painted over this because I'm going to be putting white fabric over it, and it's kind of see-through, and it was pretty offensive through what I was doing. So, I mean, you can still kind of see through it with this, but it's less offensive, so you'll see that later. You're also going to need some fabric for your ears and for your headband. This was just basically a bandana, and this was Fabric by the Art. I got them both at Joann's. You're going to need your ear template. I will link below the template that I used, so you can just print that out. It's actually a set of 2 ears, but really they're both the same, so I just cut out the one from the paper that I printed. And you're going to need some ribbon. Well, this is kind of optional. What I'm using this ribbon for in my ears here, this one is going to be going over the white fabric here for the headband, so you don't really need that if you're not going to do that. This will be the embellishment around the ears, so you can choose this or you can choose ribbon, whatever you want to put around the ears. You can also have ribbon for lining the inside of the headband, so these are all kind of optional and up to you. Let's see, the ribbon, these I got all at Dollar Tree. And you'll need a glue gun. You can get that at any craft store. Scissors, charcoal pencil, or some sort of pencil or pen that is not going to bleed through the fabric. You're going to need to draw on the back of it, so you don't want it bleeding through and, you know, ruining your fabric. An X-Acto knife. This is just a pen or a pencil or whatever. Foam board. I got this at Dollar Tree. So this is what I cut my template out of, so I'm just going to save this, and this is going to be what I'm going to use to trace things from now on, instead of the paper, because it's kind of hard to trace around paper because there's no edge, so I'm just going to use this from now on. Alright, so let's get started. Like I said before, this is the first time I'm doing this and putting this together, so bear with me. There's probably going to be some disasters and some mistakes, so we'll see what we come up with. I just thought this was going to be a fun project, so let's get to it. Oh, and I almost forgot cotton balls or some sort of fluffy, puffy stuff, like an old stuffed animal that you could take apart. I'm sure Dollar Tree has some that you can rip apart if you want to stuff your ears and make them a little poofier. So the first thing you're going to want to do is print out your template and cut out one of the ears. You don't need to do both. This way you're sure to be tracing the same thing and they're both equal. So I printed it out on regular paper and I cut this out. The next thing that I did was take a piece of foam board and trace it onto the foam board and then use my X-Acto to cut that out. Do that twice and that gives you 2 foam ears to work with. Next, what you're going to do is take the fabric that you want on the ear. Okay, I'm just using a lightweight cotton. Flip it over. You should be able to see the pattern through here, and then just pick where you think you want the design to fall on the ear. So we'll say if we do that, then you're going to take your charcoal pencil, or pencil that's not going to bleed through, and trace it around. You can kind of see where it falls after you trace it, and if you like it, that's good. If not, then just, you know, keep moving it around. You can probably wipe it off if it's like charcoal pencil, or just keep an eye on what you're doing, and just to get a general idea so you make sure that you're centering your images and everything. But yeah, generally put it down, trace it over. If that looks good to you, cut it out. But make sure you cut a little further along the edges, because you want to have just a little bit extra to go over this little thickness of the foam board here. So you would trace this, and then when you cut it out, just stay outside the line to make it a little bigger than it needs to be. Also keep in mind when you're cutting your fabric, when you have a pattern like this, where you need, like you want something centered and stuff like that, just be mindful of where you're cutting, and be mindful of when you're getting your cut of fabric. Take a look and make sure that the amount that you're getting is not chopping. See, like how if I would have gotten just like this much, I wouldn't have really anything to use. So I was originally going to get 1/8 of a yard, which is half of this, but when I saw it rolled out, a lot of things were getting chopped off and I wasn't going to have as many options. So I went with the 1/4 yard. And as you can see, I'm glad I did, because I had to space this out to get the designs that I wanted from this fabric. And then I could just save this and use it for something else, or you can even wrap the headband in the same fabric, stuff like that. So just be mindful of that when you're actually getting your cut. You may think you may not need a lot of fabric, but you may need more than you think, because you need to line up the pattern right, which is not too bad if it's like a very small pattern and you can just place the ears anywhere. So, but a bigger pattern like this, you want to make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, so then once you've cut those out, you've got these here. I'm going to put these on one ear and these on the other ear, front and back. You're going to need 4 cutouts, 2 for the front, 2 for the back. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is start to place my fabric on my ear here. So I'm going to decide which ones I want in the front. This one in the front, this one in the front. So I will start with this ear. I'm going to center my, let's see if I can zoom in for you guys, see what I'm doing better. Just make sure I stay over here. I'm going to center my guy here, my fabric onto my ear. Make sure it looks good, and I get pretty picky about this sort of stuff with centering things, although that looks pretty good right away. So yeah, okay, I like that there. So what I'm going to do is stick it down in at least some areas here, hot glue gun, to make sure it stays where I want it. Nice if I had glue in it. Oh, I do have glue in it. It just like melted out of it. Oh, never had that happen before. Okay, so I'm going to glue down. Try and stay in frame. Here. Just careful not to burn yourself. And what I'm going to do is here and here, like opposite angles, to make sure I get it. It stays where I want it to stay. But don't glue the bottom yet where the ears are going to touch the headband, because you need to leave that open if you want to stuff it. I'm just melting glue all over the place. Okay. And I'm going to glue this edge down. So now we have something staying where we want it. And you're just going to glue all around the edges. Finish that up, except for the bottom. Leave that open. I have a high threshold for heat, so if you do not, don't do this. Because you will burn yourself. So just be careful when you do that. You can use a pen or toothpick or something instead of your finger, but that doesn't usually bother me. And there we have the first ear with the bottom not glued. And there it is. That's the front. And now you do the same thing for the back. Center your piece. Well, actually, what I'm going to do first is cut the edges off here. The excess fabric. Because it's just going to be lumpy and bumpy and not pretty. So I'm just going to cut all that excess off. That's the excess that's coming over into the back of the ear. Good enough. And now you're going to do the same thing and hot glue this side on. Get it situated where you want it. Okay, I think that's good. So we're going to do the same thing, keeping the hot glue on the edge. Don't glue, okay. Keep the hot glue on the edge. Don't glue on the back here because you're going to end up gluing over your design. And that would make some very ugly ears. So keep it close to the edge you're working on. And try not to go over like I just did. Okay, so clearly the first side came out a little better than the second side. So it's a little loose, but that's all right. Now what I'm going to do is cut the excess off this side. So as you can see, you don't need to be too precise with your cutting of the fabric. Just make sure it's bigger and not smaller than what you need. You want to get it as far away from that edge as possible. Alright, now what I'm going to do is see what it looks like when you stuff it. Let's pull apart some cotton balls. Get some fluffiness in there. And I kind of glued this a little tight, so I'm going to have to shove it in with the pen without damaging that. So these are tiny cotton balls. You probably want to get bigger ones. These are the ones I got to clean my dog's ears, but they're too small, so I never used them. And now I found a use for them, to stuff Mickey ears. So you just want to pull them apart a little so you don't have like boobly ears. I don't know the word that I can use for that. And then we'll stuff them. Okay, so there you have it. I'm only stuffing the one side. I don't know if I'll like stuffing both. I'm not sure. It might look weird because it might be flat around the edge like a flying saucer. So I'm only going to stuff the front. I mean, you could stuff both sides if you'd like. I actually like the way this looks. It's not like overly offensive poofy. It just gives it a nice soft rounded look. So yeah, I like that. And so next, what I'm going to do is glue this closed. So I'm going to put my glue on the edge here. And just pull that tight and glue that down. And do the same over here. And what you're going to do on this side to not have a little jagged edge coming up like this, fold this in. Well, you know what? We'll glue that in first so it stays folded. Just a little bit of glue there. So you're folding that in so you have a nice edge here, and then we're going to glue it like this. Hey, too much glue. And we'll just clean this edge up. And there we have it. Ear 1 is done. Now you're going to just do the same exact thing we did here, except for your other ear. I'm going to do that off camera because you just saw all this, so it's just going to be repeating that, and I will be back once I have both ears done. And here you have it. I have my 2 ears stuffed in the front. So they're not super puffy, but they got a nice little, bulk to them. All glued around the sides now. And next step I'm going to do is embellish around the edge here. What I'm using for this is, I don't know, it's called diamond wrap or something. I got it at Dollar Tree. They have all different kinds, all different colors. It has 6 rows here, but it's very easy to cut. So I cut two of the sets of 2. I'll show you here. It makes more sense. So I cut 2 strips off for the length of the ear, and you'll end up with like a strip of 1, which you can save for a later time. So what I'm just going to do is start at one end and hot glue all the way around till I get to the other end. This will hide all that rough edging. Just be careful when you do this because this is not solid, so the glue does go through to your fingers. And there we have our ears, all embellished up, ready to go. So yes, the edge, it will be a little over the edge here. If you want to do one strip, that's fine. I liked the look of two, even though it does come over the edge a little bit. It cleans it up a little nicely. Let's see, so what are we going to do next here? Next we're going to have to wrap the headband. So we got our headband. If you like the color of your headband, if your headband matches whatever, you don't even have to do this step. This was, like I said, the only headband that they had left, and it did not match, so we're going to make it match. Oh, I already cut my fabric. Saved you watching me have to do that. So to cut the fabric, actually, what I did to show you, I laid out all my fabric, and I put one end down, a little bit in from the edge, and I just rolled the headband like this, and then cut a little further off that edge. So you can use a ribbon for this, you can use a piece of fabric for this. This is a bandana, and I'm also going to put the ribbon over it like I said before. So yeah, that's how I measured how much I needed. And let's pick a side here. This looks like the front side. Okay, so that looks good. So what I'm going to do is glue this down, just like kind of like how we did with the embellishments around the ears. I think I will, yeah, we'll do that next. So this, glue this down here. I'm going to do the edges of the headband so it doesn't get all bumpy in the center. Because if you do one down the center, you might end up with like a line of glue down the center. So I'm going to just make sure to put it on each side of the headband. So to cut the ends here, so it's neat, I'm going to cut a little notch like this on each side, if my scissor will cut. So I have a little notch like this, so I'm going to bring this up over, I think. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually, with those notches, cut the edges off to taper it in. Now you don't have to do this, I'm just doing this so it gives it a nice clean edge. But you can probably just work it in there and it'll be just as clean. I'm just being overly, whatever. And I still messed it up. So, I don't know. Just figure out how to do your edge here neatly. And then just glue your the edges all around. Okay, and there you have it, the glued on headband here. The next step I am going to do, which is completely optional to you, this is just a design thing. I was going to put this ribbon over this to kind of take down the brightness and just give it a little more of a pizzazz to it. So I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did for the headband, except I'm not going to glue it on the top. I am going to glue it on the inside because this is see-through, so I don't want to see the glue through that. So I'm going to wrap it around and then glue it on the inside, like so. Alright, so here we have our headband all glued together now. I didn't realize this ribbon sheds, so that stinks. Anyway, so we have that. Now, on the inside, I think I'm going to put, let's see, do we want to put this to, we could do that, or we can do black. This one actually seems like it might end up being a little neater. So we'll do this black ribbon that I have. And now we're just going to glue this straight down the center and cover all this crinkly crunkle stuff that we just glued in there and make a nice solid line in there. Alright, so that's neater. We'll say neat enough. And there we go, we've got our headband all covered and ready to go for our Mickey ears. Okay, and for my next trick, we are now going to make the bows. What I did, I have a piece of fabric, I have my ribbon that I want to put over it. Again, optional. You can also use ribbon for this whole thing, which would probably be easier, but this is what I'm using, so this is how I'm going to make it. So what I did I measured how big I want the bows and stuff. Essentially your bow is going to be about half this size because you're going to be folding it. So this is actually how big the bow is going to be from this much fabric, so about half the size. I also wanted it thinner, so I'm going to fold this in half, and also because this is kind of see-through, it helps that as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to take my overlap ribbon, decide which side I want the front to be. We'll say this side. Okay, and put it this side down like this. And I'm going to very lightly, in a few spots, just glue this ribbon over the fabric so it stays in place. And next I'm going to take one end, fold it into the center, take the other end, fold that into the center. Try and keep your rough one on the inside. And then I'm going to just pinch the top and the bottom and bring it together like that. And yeah. And then once you got where you want it pinched right, try and hold it in the front and the back. Or, I mean, you can use ribbon to do this part. I'm actually going to use some of this stuff again. You just need, well, for these bows, I just need 1 row of 6 to wrap around the center. So what I'm going to do is, watch your fingers, put a little dab of glue there, and stick this one down. Let it dry for a second, because you're going to have to pull on it. Okay. Now, you can put your finger on that. And I glue each dot, well, most of the dots. And I pull this around, gluing it to the ribbon. For future reference, make sure your bow is even. This one's kind of, and actually instead of starting on the top, try and start in the back, because you don't want to really end on the top either. So luckily this doesn't look too bad, but it's good to go. And then I just kind of shove some hot glue in there to kind of make sure it stays, the bow stays where it needs to stay. That's it. So there's the bow, and the bows I'm going to do, I was going to put one on each ear, in the front and in the back, and that would be my thing. So I'm going to do the remaining bows, and I'll be back after that, and then we can glue this all together and see what we end up with. Okay, so I've got all 4 of my bows, and now I'm ready to start gluing it all together. Alright, so let's do this. I'm going to eyeball it, and when I do this, make sure that they don't go too close together. Probably want something like that, I would think. So that's about probably 2-inch gap in the center, I would say. So I will start with one and see how it goes. Alright, so we're going to glue it in the center of the headband since we have our bows. I'm going to put my finger here so I know where to start it. Get my hot glue gun. Hot glue gun out. Get a nice rim of hot glue on my ear, and then stick it down. I don't want that piece of fabric in there. So I'm also going to check out where I want my bows. Okay. I'm thinking this one will go in front of this one. So what I'm going to do is first put some more hot glue just behind where that bow is going to go. Just kind of give it some extra hold there, because I feel like one line of glue, and this is where I ruined the whole thing. So I feel like one line of glue is just not going to do it. So let that dry. And I think I'm going to do the same for the back. Just to kind of give it a little extra sturdiness and not be visible behind the bow there. Oh, I hate hot glue strings. Okay. So now, where'd my bow go? Is it? Yeah. So now I'm going to glue my bow on. And put a big wad of glue back here. Position and glue. And there is one bow, and what I'm going to do is also glue it to the fabric so it stays in place, and also might give it a little more sturdiness so it doesn't break or fall off. And we also want to make sure we glue it to the headband, like so. So there we go. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side with the ears, and I will come back and see what we got. Alright, and here we have it. Here they are. I am so excited. These are adorable. They came out way better than I expected. It went way smoother than I expected it to. And these are pretty darn sturdy, it seems, so I think they're going to last me quite some time, and I can't wait to use these for my trip. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and please like, comment, subscribe, share. It really helps my videos. It really helps me be seen. It helps me make more videos like this. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see. I am happy to make them. Normally my channel is model horse related, but you know, art in general is my forte, so arts, crafts, sometimes even reviews. So whatever you'd like to see, I'd be happy to do a video on, so just let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thanks again for watching.